right, everyone. Welcome to the session. We are happy to have you here. The session was authored by Resa Schwarzwald, who unfortunately contracted COVID before the conference. So I'm switching up for her to take over the moderation here. And this panel is called The Differences and Similarities Between Eastern and Western Game Audio Design. And this panel discussion comes with many different topics that all kind of touch this main topic, but don't directly refer to it. And I would like to introduce our panelists now that we have here. I'll just state the names and let them introduce their own work. And we have Aleksey Vanchuk. And
hello.
We have Matyas Csernak, my colleague and friend.
Hello.
And we have Stepan Bitus.
Hi everyone. Hello, hello. I think my microphone is a little bit feedbacking.
Okay, and now you can each one talk a little about yourself if you want, and to introduce your work or what you do currently.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matyas. I work for studio Grandis Production, and I'm on the position of managing director in this company. Previously I was sound designer and composer, but now I'm responsible for running the business. Our studio is an outsourcing game audio studio, 90 members, and we cover complex audio services on different kind of video games like PC, console, mobile, VR, AR, etc. So this is the long story short part about me.
All right. My name is Stepan. I'm working at Glera Games, a game development studio. We create mobile games. I work in the position of sound design manager. My role acquires several roles such as team lead, content creator, and audio director, sort of that. Yep.
Hello one more time. My name is Aleksey, and I'm audio team lead in Wargaming in World of Tanks PC. And before I worked for 4 years as a senior sound designer in this company on this product. And from this year I started this position, which includes some management stuff, some supervising, and some other very interesting things which are quite new for me.
Okay, I'm David. I'm a composer, sound designer, and moderator of this panel. I mostly work on full-time on a game that is called Volcanoids, besides some other side projects that I have, playing guitar, teaching guitar and concerting, etc. And at this point, we should introduce the first, or the main topic that we have, that we start off with, and that's how do you choose the right audio person for a specific game job? Because that quite differs depending on what the genre is, what the gameplay style is, etc. And I'll just throw it as an open question to any one of our guys who want to react, I would say.
Maybe I will start. Maybe I should ask you, who are you asking, the developer or an audio team, right? Because if you are asking a developer, maybe we should consider what is better to choose, a freelance or an outsourcing studio. But if you are asking for asking an audio team how to hire a new audio guy, that's a totally different question. So
yeah, I would mean the developer in this case, probably.
Okay, so maybe on the side of developer, anyway, I'm still a sound designer and a composer person, but I'm representing a developer company, so probably this is a question to me. Yeah, it's pretty much dependent on the project for which you're looking a specialist, and I believe that probably if the project is very small and and you not require a long term of schedule and jobs, you may try to find a individual specialist who can cover your basic needs and create sounds and music, and probably even make an implementing for your project. If you prepare a small game, maybe if you're indie developer and you're preparing a game for tech launch and just want to make some testing, then this way probably the freelancer would be fine. But if you're running a game development studio, which has a big state of many production departments, such as big team of animators, of narrative department, and programmers, developers, and so forth, so on. So probably you better should find a proper collective of professionals who can take over the sound and deliver the best result for your project from the beginning. Yeah. Like this.
I also think that it depends on not only on the scale of the project, but about the timing. If you're making a project like a service, some free-to-play game, some even if it's small, with not deep gameplay, with not deep progressions, but it's a service which have lots of updates, it seems that your choice is to take someone in-house or to sign some freelancer or some outsourcing studio which have a long-term contract with you, because it's very hard to onboard new persons each time when you need to make some DLC, make some updates, and so on. That's why I think I can add to your thought that not only the scale but time of support this project and lifetime of this projects. Very important when you choose the way how will you work with sound designer team and with composer.
Maybe there is one more thing I would like to mention, and it is the internal management of the team, like how well is managed the production. Because I experienced a few times several years ago that a developer company had a quite good sound designer employed internally, but some things in the production changed, so they got a quite big problems how to, or what kind of job to give to the sound designer, right? So I guess if somebody want to employ in a small team or a mid-core team internal sound guy, then this company has to have quite good management and calculate with all the maybe some difficulties when some deadlines will move on, etc., etc. So yeah.
Maybe the person who is great in sound design will be great in any field. So he can do some other things when he's on a bench.
One-man band.
Yeah, and you're touching another topic now, by the way, because all the three of you have one thing in common, because you were all producing and composing sound design, and now you are in a leading position, CEO position, manager position. And when you get to that point, do you miss the production part of the work, or do you somehow find a way to combine it, or do you really have to focus only on the managing side of the job? Maybe it's a question to Matyas.
From my perspective, the managing and the production is two total different types of work. So when I'm producing something, or when I'm doing some business, I use totally different resources of my brain. So once I'm doing the conversion, I learned that I may lose some effectivity or something like this. And this is also the reason why we have decided in our company to specialize all the team members for some particular job. Yeah. That doesn't mean that the people are not doing something different, but not at the same time. So sometimes we work on more projects at the same time, like 1 month milestone period, 5 or 6 or 7 projects. So let's imagine how difficult it could be that you are quite deep in the composition of your masterpiece, and suddenly you have to go to a Skype call with your client to discuss a total different project which will come 2 months later, and then you realize that you have lost your creative idea or whatever, right? So from my perspective, it's once again about the management. Once the team is well managed, then it can work quite effectively. That one is the manager, second guy is a designer, the third guy is a composer, and they are working together very effectively.
Yes, thank you, Matyas. Actually, I pretty agree to you. And as a person being who is at the moment managing a small audio team and still creating some content, I would say that it might be really tough at times to combine technical tasks with the creative tasks and rolling everything, keeping deadlines and so on. So I think there might be two options. I see two options of development in such situations. One is why actually one got in the position like this. On an example of mine, when you'd like to learn deeper the game development process, the bordering disciplines of game development, you have to touch different areas of production and collaborate closely to different departments in the studio. So this is like sometimes you have to put yourself on the tough conditions to learn something new. It's might be not necessary, but for some it might be helpful. And I think there are two outputs of this experience can be. One is you're burned out, tired, and you don't know what to do, and you have to choose what exactly you want to do further, either you want to stay as a creator or you'd like to proceed further as a manager and so on. And another solution or output which I see is you find a perfect combination of approaches to this variety of tasks. You learn how to delegate and spread the task across your team. You find the right team for yourself, and you're doing good. Then, yeah.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah, I agree too with both of you, and I think that we three have some advantage if we'll compare with some other managers because we made the production by our hands and by our ears, and always we can say stop. I will do it by myself because you know how it should be. Yeah, and this is a question of responsibility. For example, in my situation, I'm responsible for the whole sound in the whole project. That's why I cannot work only as a manager and just to tune up the processes, because anyway you should supervise the music, you should think about art vision, talk with all the departments what this event or what this game is about, what is it, yeah, and you should decide which soundscapes and which emotions it should work. So not only the processes, but I think that in this our positions we have still very close connection to production, because we know how to do it. Not like managers who come from another field, you know, from single management.
Yeah, basically yesterday we got a very similar question on a different panel, the same game, different music. And the question was, I think, is it a good idea when a manager doing also sounds or vice versa? And I think it can go only one way, like the sound designer or composer can be a manager later, but not in the opposite way, right? Because once you know all the hidden stuff in the sound design and composition, then...
Tell me if I'm mistaken, but your case is exactly opposite.
Yeah, my case is exactly this one.
So there is always some unique situation in the general statistics, yeah.
but at least you get to touch the music, you know. I mean, I've seen managers who haven't even touched the surface of the job of the people that are below them, you know. So at least when you're coming up as a musician with a musical background, or at least some kind of a sound background, you're still a much better fit to lead such a team than if you're like a really good specialized manager, even, I think, because you can see what's actually happening in the meat that they're making.
Yeah, but for sure I'm still very happy when a colleague of mine sent me a message through Slack that Matyas, please jump down to the studio, we need to record some guitar pieces, and like, wow.
Please more. Yeah.
Please more.
Yeah, well, and that's also probably a topic we could refer to, because we don't always work with game developer people, and that's actually one of the questions I forgot to ask at the beginning of this session. I'll ask it now to the audience, because we did it last time too. How many audio people are here right now? If you can put your hands up, okay. We got 2 guys, know both of these guys. And all the rest, okay, developers, fine. So we have like 10%.
But probably it's not bad. It means that a lot of people from non-audio departments are interested in audio topics.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing.
Let's count it as a positive.
We have a quite unique profession, you know.
Yeah, and maybe we can hear some feedback from a totally different perspective, like how does a developer see the same stuff we are talking about.
Yeah,
so.
and it's very important to start this conversation over and over, you know, because it's like in this field we are doing like quite many very different subfields. And I've even read about some companies who made a new opening for a translator in between fields, who's basically like an HR guy who's working around the firm and trying to help the different fields communicate with each other better, which is, I think, is very important, because I talk with the programmer, with the level designer, with the art director, with the art creator, then with the animator, who might have a little bit of a different opinion because he really likes his animations and he would like them to be sounded, you know, but it doesn't always go through with the boss, and that's all these hurdles. And well, that's also referring to working with people who are not game devs at all, who don't know the terminology, who maybe need more specific management. And that's maybe I'd ask Matyas if he has experience with it, because I remember he told me they did something like that with the Grand Beats some time ago.
So your question is about non-game, but audio guys, right?
Yeah, about audio guys.
Yeah. Okay. I think I could mention some pros and cons. Maybe the pros could be that these guys tend to be more interested in some cases to work on video game projects because they are new in the industry. They are ready to do some additional homework if they have to compose or record something, and for sure they have to build their portfolio. So I experienced a few times that non-game dev audio guys were totally impressed when we gave them a chance to work on a project. But for sure I also experienced some disadvantages, like lack of industry standards knowledge, like how to export the files, what is the engine, what is the adaptivity, how to export loops, and many other things. So of course it depends on the project, how difficult the project is. Once you are doing something very complex or different, where strict communication is needed between a programmer and the audio producer, then you may lose a lot of time just with communication and explaining what is what and what is trigger and what is one shot and what is loop and what is variation.
Yeah.
So even if you are working with a non-game dev audio guy, I guess at least a creative audio director should be there. So in this case, the audio director can be in a role of a manager who will say exactly, I need this, right? So then the non-game dev audio guy can focus only on the audio part in which he's the most professional.
Mm-hmm. Let me add to your speech. I do agree with Matyas. I would just add that it definitely might work for some particular task. An example, if you need audio for cutscenes or linear part of the games, such as intros, transitions, and so on, the non-game audio specialist definitely can deliver a good result. And in many cases, I believe it can be even better than the internal game dev specialists could do, because at the market there are much broader range of audio professionals from bordering industries such as cinema and commercials, advertisement, and so on, which are very skilled and good at producing linear content. So this might work well. However, as you mentioned, you can meet difficulties when you have to deliver content for game standards, like for an example, in my case, for mobile game standards, when you have to know how exactly the mix should sound and what should be the numbers and the loofs and dBs and how fast should be the production itself and so on. So if you're ready to invest your time and teach the specialist for all these tiny details, you might end up with a good result, but it may require some time. All right.
Yeah, and I can add that from my experience in audio team in World of Tanks, it's seems that to share the expertise with the great composer, for example, who don't know anything about interactive audio, about game audio, it's quite much easier than to make a great composer from a great sound designer, you know, because this passion to music, this passion to emotional skills and all these things, metaphysics things, they are somewhere. Here, you cannot teach it, but when a guy has a great skills with composing music and understanding what should sound there and there in linear media, I think that a percentage of specialists who could be retouched for the interactive audio is much higher than versa. It's from my experience in Wargaming and from my experience like a sound design trainer who taught students, and most of them homemade musicians or professional musicians, and a little percent of professional sound engineers. And each of them could be taught as a sound designer to work with interactive audio. Not all, but the percent is very high, I think, but not in the opposite side.
Yeah, back to what Stepan said. I came to an experience some years before we got a project from a non-game audio guy. It was a pixel art top-down dungeon crawler shooter with hundreds of enemies and hundreds of weapons and explosions and projectiles and everything. And when we did some audit from the game and we have checked the sound effects one by one with animations, they were totally cool, totally great. And we really liked it, like it was a bit non-commercial underground style of sound effects. But once we have turned on everything in Wise and played it together, then we thought, gosh, this will be just maybe 1 month or 2 months of restructure the whole project, because once everything happened at the same time in the game, like 15 enemies are shooting to different kind of projectiles, different kind of explosions, etc. And the voiceover started and some music in the background, and it was a totally mess, right? So, yeah, this is what I wanted to add.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, I think we all met such cases in our experience. It's like mixing VSOP cognac with Coca-Cola. Separately might be good, but together, not for everyone.
Great example.
About mixing, Stepan just mentioned mixing. That's one of the horrors I was going through when I started working in the game industry, because I was questioning myself, when do I start mixing this? You know, it's there's just footsteps now, some gunshots, some enemy sounds, some ambience. I probably want to start now. So my question to either of you is, what do you think is the ideal time to like start mixing, or what approach to take to mixing, or what, maybe we should narrow it down to games that are directed for PC or consoles, not necessarily mobile. I think mobile would require a quite different approach to mixing at all. So let's just stay at the PC world. And
I think that it's mostly the question not of mixing, it's a question of prioritization. So when you're on a pre-production stage or on a concept stage, anyway, you should understand what is the prioritization of your voices, what is the prioritization of your sound systems, shooting, footsteps, environments, music, voiceovers, and so on. And when you understand what will be in your project, in the case of priorities, you will understand how you will be mixed. Maybe not in general, maybe not in small tunes, but you will understand in general how it should work. And then when you explain, even if you have some freelancer or some junior sound designer who have not so much experience as you can explain him about this prioritization system, and I think that people will understand what you're talking about and will prepare content which will be suitable for your mix. And for you as a main sound director or sound mixing engineer in game, it will be much more easier to mix it when you will have it all together in your project. So I think it's not about mixing in the way we are talking it in music, It's about pre-production and analyzing.
Was a very good answer, because there are artificial sound worlds in almost every game, and they are partly created by this prioritization of sounds, which might be like against physics in the regular world, but you want to guide the player somewhere, you want to explain to him some things, and you really can do that effectively with the sound when you mix it properly. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe I would also think about who will do the review of a build or of a stage of the game, right? Because I can imagine if we would work together and I would send you my update of some sound effects, I will tell you, guys, the footsteps are maybe too loud, and I know that you will understand that, right? But I several times experienced a situation when we did the same thing, like we sent a version to a client and we told them, danger, there are not mixed sounds, right? The footsteps are too loud, and the first feedback was the footsteps are too loud, right? So maybe this is another question: who will do the review of your work?
Yeah, I would like you guys to do the review when the volcano is done. You know, it's.
So sounds like a topic for the next panel, maybe next year, when you send us your production.
Yeah, exactly.
All three of us will make a review and we will discuss on it.
I mean, we can do it next year.
Yeah, well, we'll be happy to. Well,
the mix is done, I think.
Mix sounds to be done. And when it comes to working with people in-house versus freelance, what do you think is the main difference, or what are the main cons when they get to contrary?
Oh, that's an interesting question, actually, and I have some experience in comparing in-house and outsource doers and producers. So what comes to my mind immediately it's very often depends of the level of the specialist. Anyway, no matter it's a freelancer or in-house producer, it's very much dependent on the seniority of the guy or girl. such as sometimes you might experience many revisions and long rounds of redoings when you receive a task from an experienced junior freelancer. While that would be definitely not the case you want to have. What do you think?
Me?
Well, whatever.
I think that, yeah, it depends on experience, of course, but also it depends on how you decompose your tasks, which you should give to the freelance. Because if you understand this, for example, these guys, they're making great music and making this music for cutscenes, and they don't understand how to make this music for interactive music system, for example, in Edvice or in Fmod. You should understand it in the beginning, and if you want to adopt this music after they will complete their job, for example, you can ask them to give you not mixed project and just multi-track project, for example, yeah, and it should be described in technical requirements of your
needs.
Of your needs, yeah, and it could be in this way easier. And of course, always, I don't know, I have never ordered some job in outsource, because before my in-house job I was working as a freelancer by myself, so I'm not a guy who ordered this job, but it seems that we should, if we have the possibility to try some people around in the industry, even if they are junior sound designers or just beginners, we should give them the chance and to try, even maybe it will be cheaper. But maybe you will find the brilliant in this field, yeah, and will understand that this guy should be taught in a great sound designer in the future. But of course it's a question of time and of money.
And the luck.
Yeah, and the luck.
Again, I totally agree with Aleksey. It's about the management. Obviously, a game audio outsourcing team can deliver a much bigger amount of work in a shorter time period, right, than a freelancer. That's maybe nothing new for us. And in some cases, quick time delivery can save a lot of time, money, and time is money. So in some cases, an outsourcing team, even if it's more expensive, can save a lot of time. But I think this is not the only decision-making factor, as it is more important to have a quite good internal management in the team, right? So once a game development team has a good management and they can link an external company into their internal processes effectively, then it can end very well. I experienced some cooperations where the development team well not organized well. We didn't know never what will come the next week, when will be the vertical slice, and who needs what, and you know. And I really experienced that this unnamed video game development partner were losing exactly some money in that, right? So I would say an outsourcing company or outsourcing game audio studio would fit to a company which exactly knows what is he doing and what will be the game and what are the milestones and when, what, how, who, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the presence of audio specialist, audio guy in development team would help to organize these processes with outsourced company? How it was in your experience? Maybe you can share.
Yeah. Yesterday we have talked with the guys about a project. Once again, a project of ours, where we started to cooperate like 3 years before, and they didn't have an audio director in their team. It is a team of 50 team members, so a mid-core development team, but all the time some graphic designer or animator or programmer were the right person for giving us some
music
feedback.
Lover, probably.
Yeah, music lover. And they understood that they need a guy who will talk just with us. So
who will translate?
The translator.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's the audio dev translator, and now it works very well. So So yeah, and this is by the way a very good moment when your client realizes that this outsourcing company can do a great job, but we do not have enough expertise people for communicating with them. So
yeah, that's a very good point, and I think it's actually can speed up and make a whole process way more effective when you have a proper common language between the audio production team and game development studio. Can save you many time and money.
I have a little trick about this. Even if you don't have common language with the guys who ask you to make audio, not about technical, of course, questions, but about the spirit and about the art style and about all these things, you can always start to talk about the movies and about the cinema and about the archetypes which are used in this industry, because a language of cinema is more common for people, and it's when you understand how to use these cinema tricks, movie tricks in games, you always will find the common language with some producer or game designer or guys who are not involved in audio production and games deeply. Of course, if we are talking about games, you can talk about games, but I think more effective talking about movies, because when we are talking about games, we always get some reference, and when you get this reference, it's quite big frames, which are and it's very difficult to work with it because everybody think about Doom or about something, and you cannot do anything else. But when we are talking about movies and some archetypes from literature, from about emotions, you can always find the common point with them. It's my trick from my freelance career and from career in Wargaming, and it works usually.
Thank you so much. I very pretty much agreed to you. I just wanted to hook you with another question. By the chance, do you have any special collection with the references sorted by mood, like playlist in Spotify, like sad and dirty, uplifting and fast?
No, it's always about if we are talking with people who are the same ages, it always comes to some movies from 80s, which we was looking in our childhood, or to some movie classics like from Vietnam War or something. Yeah, because I'm making wargaming games, so it's somewhere there. But of course, usually you can find the common genre and understand which examples from this genre are common for you and for this guy who is your client or your colleague in a company, and find it.
Yeah, this leads me to another mind. That, yeah, language of references is very useful, and it's exactly we all should use it when we talk to non-musical persons for whatever matter. And another good thing when you communicate with a non-audio person is inquire a reference from the perspective of emotions. Don't require like a track or sound. And I personally really like when the client who is ordering sound talking to you in a language of emotion. When he asking, I need player feel this and that in this moment. I want the experience, hurry, or I want the experience some uncertainty and so on. So we have to put the gamer in this moment in certain conditions. So it's very helpful for sound designer to understand what tools to use and what atmosphere to create.
Yeah, and of course, in this case, when you will talk with, for example, game designer, and you understand what is a game loop and what is the stages of this game loop, you can add some references from other fields to all the parts of this game loop, emotional, uplifting, and so on, and understand what he wants. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the best word in feedbacking is it's not enough dynamic, right?
Yeah, pump it up. Yeah.
The best word in a feedback is thank you. I believe.
or even no feedback, like nothing.
No response.
We have lots of emojis now and stickers, so without words.
Depending on the audio pipeline and the game develops, and I'm thinking, because when I joined Volcanoids myself, there were already like 3-4 sound designers who already worked a little bit on the game, and I was like horrified because different approaches, different kinds of implementations, half broken, couldn't find really the objects within Unity because they were all named like weird things and names. And I thought to myself, if you're ever going to decide on having a sound designer and stuff, just try to communicate with him a way that he can adjourn to your requirements so he can stay, because the more designers get to work on the same project, then the worse the case is for the next guy. And I'm thinking, is there any way to determine what is the ideal time to include the audio design in your project or start producing it?
It's as simple as earlier better.
I think so too.
In most cases, but maybe guys add something.
Firstly, maybe I would ask, what do you mean audio? Because we can talk about pre-production or some preparation, creativity, create the audio design documents, or even budgeting, right? So if we put all these audio-related stuff under the roof audio, then I would say, or I would agree with Stepan, like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And if we talk about exactly the audio design, that's, I think, a very, very, very difficult question. It can depend on a lot of different stuff. Maybe I would tell in a hyper-casual game in the later phases, or in a AAA adventure PC console game, maybe in the very beginning, even if you are just prototyping, right? Because if the audio is an unlinkable part of a gameplay experience or audiovisual experience, then you have to also prototyping the audio, right? So, yeah, I don't know, what are your experiences with prototyping, for example, because somebody has to pay for that, right? In the end of the day.
It's firstly, I agree with you that as earlier is better, but we should be realists and understand that audio very often depends on the visual, what we have. First of all, about the visual effects. And in most cases, it's quite impossible to sync these two stages. When visual artists make assets and you make assets, you can sync with them, you can have calls and watch the stages of their doing, but anyway the final polishing will be after they will complete their work. That's why I should mention once again about the decomposing of tasks which are made. For example, if we're talking about music, you can start making music for this game even on concept stage or even on pre-production, when you will understand what is emotions in this game and all these things we talked a little before. But if we are talking about exact mechanics, exact visual effects and exact animations, it's quite difficult to be blind when you make sound for them. That's why it's our fightum to over time in the end stages of production always, and we have some like this with our time because of these visual things.
Yeah, but sometimes developers says that put the right sounds on the visuals once we fixed, locked the visuals, right? And if you think about it, sometimes the audio can change or can affect the feeling from something.
Okay,
right?
of course, that's why I'm talking about that. You should sync with these guys and have communication.
Yeah, sure. And this is what I wanted to tell, in the end of the day, somebody has to pay for that. So from my perspective, I several times experienced a situation when this audio prototyping were blocked, like we will just pay for something which will make any sense, right? So back to the question, maybe we can discuss this from the perspective of an audio guy, or for example a decision maker, an investor. Like if I would be an investor, I would tell guys, please do not do nothing and start to design or compose once we will lock some levels or visuals, and then the audio guy would tell, gosh, you are going to test something without sound, and why? I would like to add something into the stuff. So yeah, I really like the situations where we can do some audio testing.
I think that the easiest way to work with it is to create some video prototypes, not in-game prototypes, but video prototypes which are based on game prototype, but on the early stages, even on gray boxes, even on something, because when you will do your job well on a video prototype, 1 minute, for example, you will make them to understand that with your sound, this game, even on these gray boxes, give better experience to the player. And even if you will do it not very well and spend not so much time, video shooting of game without sound and with sound, you understand how it will work.
I wanted to add just two things more. The one is we definitely should avoid adding sound person on the last stage when everything is locked and we have 1 week till release. I think it's commonly happen with outsourced studios. And while you explained your point, I realized that probably this works a little bit different in-house and in outsourced studios, because depends how you're paying for the result. Are you paying for hours, or you're paying for asset, and so on. So how it works in our studio, and I pretty like this approach when you allow to very early documentation of the feature, and you can investigate what's going on and preliminary sort what sound system will you need to describe triggers and prepare a developer for what he will need to do in order to implement everything as fast as possible and provide us a working prototype, so we could already implement the sound and check everything in the game. Yeah, I believe it's maybe not that possible for cases when the outsourced studio involved, but it's not always working too, because sometimes during the animation production and visual production things change a lot, but sometimes it saves time when you can prepare at least audio palette for some scope of tasks and preliminary create good sounds. And a skilled sound designer very often can create simple but picky sounds for anything, just out of his mind. And then later you can polish it to the particular style of animation and so on. Yes, I think you both should agree that when we start to create sound, we're firstly trying to achieve the idea with the most simple way. Like, you are not putting a lot of tomatoes and garlic and everything all together. You firstly take a good piece of tomato or fish, I don't know, the main ingredient, yeah? So, and then you can put over everything later. I hope I was clear enough. Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. I often pick an example of mine when I came in contact with the game Fallout 3. Do you know this game? I hope.
Oh yeah.
And it was like 2011 when I've seen, or 2012 in the school. My schoolmate showed me, Matyas, you should play this game. It was a school, so the sound were turned off, and when I was watching to the screen and was watching to a totally destroyed post-apocalyptic grayish, greenish environment with so stupid third-person on the left side view, and I was just, no, this is not a game I want to play. And he just tried to tell me this will be the best game ever you ever played, right? And he was so pushing me, and then he told, I will install it to your computer, and I will do the tutorial, to not be annoyed by the tutorial. And then I opened the game, and when I turned on the Galaxy News radio and heard and I was like, gosh, this is the game I want to play, right? So the same game with or without music made
now
so
we're coming to audio branding.
Yeah.
So excuse me.
So if I would be I don't know, investor for this game, for example, the Fallout 3, and I would see the vertical slice without this stuff, maybe I would say, I don't know, this game will be successful or not. So yeah.
That's great. Great. Thank you for all your opinions and the talk. Now we have a bit of time for Q&A. So
hi guys. Yeah, we have 10 more minutes for questions. So if you have questions, just raise your hand. Hand.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. I work as a game designer and I'm here to actually learn a few new things or inspirations to become less of a pain for sound designers, to do better for them from my side and to understand how can I improve my communications. So you had, one of the questions was about educating new designers, but have you ever thought or had practice of educating other designers about sound design? Because game designer might think that he understands how to work with sound designer. He might even learn other game designers how to communicate with sound designers, but that might be just wrong. And maybe that's a great idea for guys from sound design teams just to talk about their job with other designers to improve this communication. Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, it sounds very good, and actually we are trying to fulfill our dictionary of common language between game designers and sound designers all the time, and it's very important indeed. It's a very good point that probably we should arrange courses for game designers inside company or whatever. Sorry, I'm joking, but it's not always it's not always necessary to teach, because we are learning from each other. It's rather about keeping contact, being in contact with the departments we communicate inside the studio. So if you're asking and giving such a kind of question, I'm very happy that it's happening here in this room, because altogether, game designers, sound designers, all departments, we are starving for getting better results in our games. And if we will hear each other and talk to each other, we will definitely have much more chances for success. We can talk after the section more closely if you want and discuss some objects. Maybe guys would like to add something.
We are trying to educate our clients all the time, so once we have a collaboration that will take longer than 2 or 3 years, then mostly our clients are well educated how to communicate with audio designers. And another thing I would like to say maybe is that our studio is often organizing some presentations, workshops, talks on different kinds of conferences, online and offline for sure. And maybe the last thing, we started an initiative with David last year. We are going to establish a Game Audio Professionals Association in Czech Republic. We would like to focus these topics mostly, so maybe this is the first marketing to announce our association, and maybe you will hear later more. Maybe we will try to link to some conferences, maybe DevGAMM.
Yeah, we already have a survey, and we'll force you all to fill the survey before you leave the room.
Also, regarding this topic, I have a quite good example about Wargaming company. We have an educational program which is called VG Forge, and we don't teach the sound designers, but there is a huge program for game designers. And maybe 2 years ago, I remember the guys who complete this educational program and got offers to work as a junior sound designers in Wargaming on World of Tanks. They have a practice when they were attached to some departments. For example, we had one guy who completed these courses and get an offer, who visited our stand-up meetings in the morning for 2 weeks and was completely dipped in our sound design questions. And after that, he's still working in Wargaming. And when we have common features now, it's quite easy to explain him that we are not just downloading MP3 files from the internet, and it's something more, you know.
Hope we answered the question a bit widely.
Actually, yeah, I have one question. I laughed really hard after you told this joke. It's not really a joke about add more dynamic, because I gave that feedback in the past. So if somebody gives you feedback like add more dynamic music, how you react?
From my side, maybe I would say, firstly, I would like to make it clear what you mean about the dynamics. Dynamics of a particular instrument, or dynamic of the arrangement of the music, or dynamics how the music works in the game, like how it reacts. So now I mentioned at least 3 potentially misunderstanding points, right? So
I can name even 2 more. It's like how much of narrative exists in the music, or what technically parts of track, one part sound quieter or louder. So it's really a lot of dimension. So here we come to the topic of common language again. Yeah. So basically, yeah, we would definitely better to define what stays behind this definition, dynamics, and maybe if you can explain what it was in yourself, maybe we can answer this question then.
Yeah, we created a trailer about like robots running and shooting, and when it came to like adding music, I'm like, okay, just add some dynamic music, and that would be okay, because that's not like top-notch trailer. We will just publish it, and that's it. Some dynamic music, but it wasn't dynamic enough.
Sometimes, you know, you should add funk.
Funky rhythms, and
yeah.
you got it.
That was another joke. You know, it's where the problem starts from. When you just saying add something to do some dynamic music, and I should like it in the end. Yeah. So we should better focus on emotion. Dynamic, it's a very broad definition, and I suggest in this case use more words related to emotion. It's how the one who experienced this trailer, what he or she should experience, what emotion, and I bet that in most cases you will get more cleaner and better result. If we talk in very simple definitions, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more questions from the audience?
I would like to add just one thing
Yeah,
to your question. Maybe this situation is not about educating what is dynamic or not. In this situation, maybe I would send you several YouTube links, and I will ask you, do you think the video A is dynamic, yes or not? So with this way, trial and error, maybe we can save a lot of time instead of educating, to be honest to everybody, for sure. But we really experienced this in the past, like we didn't know what the clients think about dynamics, but we thought maybe my 3 points or your another 4 or 5 or how many it says, and we were just prepared. If he will say A is okay, then we know how the client see or understand the words dynamic. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I once got a request to make the music sound more like Lord of the Rings and like something orchestral, you know. And then I asked the guy, can you send me some references, you know, because I worked on it today and I'm not sure if I'm heading in the right direction. And he sent me 7 Steps from Hell. So yeah, it's a very good idea to ask people to send reference videos and stuff, because then that's concrete and you can relate.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for this talk. Please give our speakers a round of applause, and don't